Yeah, on.
Two twins.
Enya has reached a unique spot at the pinnacle of her profession. Like Cher and Madonna, an artist who doesn't need a last name. She's sold more than 60 million albums around the world. But she's almost never seen by her fans. Enya's never staged a concert tour and rarely performs live. A pop icon now 42 years old, passionate about her privacy.
There are certain people who are very comfortable with being photographed every day, and there's certain people who need it as well, you know. And it's just that, to me, I never felt the need for it.
Hey, Enya, go on tour. Go on freaking tour. I've been wanting her to go on tour for 20 years.
You've been calling for this for decades, dude.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
It was like my dream to see Enya. She does have a last name, by the way. It's Brennan, but who cares? She's Enya, right? I wanted to like see her at like the State Theater, you know, somewhere like where you've seen rock bands and stuff. I wanted to see her play a show at a place like that. Never happened. Probably won't ever happen.
I mean, you would know. Has she ever played a show stateside ever? Like, has she ever played a show in New York or anything?
I don't know. I don't think so. We'll get to it, but
yeah,
we'll get to it. But
this is a real. This could be like me with Kate Bush.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, similar. Like you're a little head over heels.
Listen, if you're planning to have me in some way be critical of this artist tonight, that's probably going to be tough.
Do you think that, like Kate Bush, Enya might find her way to number one again?
Yeah.
Can you believe what's happening there?
Yeah. So that's because of a TV show or something? Run Up That Hill got a...
Yeah. So it's Stranger Things. I don't think Stranger Things was ever your thing.
What is a show?
Yeah. It's a Netflix show.
Is it
we
your
watched
thing?
the first couple seasons. Well, I watched the first couple seasons. It's a real sci-fi sort of deal. There's this underworld and everything. So it's not really my cup of tea, but it was compelling enough. It's set in the 80s. And one of the things about the show is that the use of music is just exceptional.
Oh, okay.
They use great 80s music, and then Zombie does like the original music for it. Zombie Relapse Records, like electronic artists, which is awesome. And so they use all these 80s references. And if your song is in Stranger Things, you like it's the modern music business. Like you immediately like skyrocket, and it's rejuvenated many careers. Stranger Things has. So the latest is Kate Bush. They used Running Up That Hill in this very, important scene of the debut of season 4. And almost immediately the song went to number 1 in the UK or top 10 for sure or whatever.
Won't it be fun? And, look no further than our next episode, teaser to have these hidden gems, uncut gems of albums and songs. Won't it be fun to watch a song like Run Up That Hill and a host of many others find some way to come back and remind a new generation how good it was? It's very cool to see that happen. And hey, it is what it is. You got to figure out clever ways to get this music in front of people. And if it's going to take TV shows, then let's go with TV shows, right? So I think it's all in all a net awesome thing, but it's so fun to watch a younger generation and a different generation kind of be like, "Ooh, that's a great song." And it's like, yeah, no shit.
I agree with all of that.
Been a great song for decades.
So here's my question for you. If Enya almost overnight had this like resurrection of her career. And if it was from a TV show or something other than people buying her records. And all of a sudden, Enya is like the talk of the town. In any way, shape, or form, as a music fan, did you ever have that thing where that bothered you? Where it's like, oh, I was there, I've liked Enya for 30 years.
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah. I did have that, but now I don't. I've gotten over it, because if it means that people are reconnecting to something, then I just see it as nothing but positive. But yes, there used to be a "where have you been the last 20 years" thing. But now I've realized that that's sort of dumb, and it's just good for these things to get in the hands of people, particularly young people, in any way, shape, or form possible,
Yeah, I think that's kind of the perfect take. I never really had the thing of like, I liked Nirvana before, everyone liked Nirvana before they got popular, apparently. But yeah, I do think anything to bring it to life. Hopefully it leads to people discovering Kate Bush's entire catalog. Yeah. More than just like listening to Running Up That Hill over and over again. Because Running Up That Hill is actually a very unique song for her. But here I am. Here I go talking about Kate Bush again.
Yeah, that's right. I should have known. We were going in that direction.
But lots of similarities between Kate Bush and Enya.
Yeah,
including the clip you just played. Both very reclusive,
Yes.
And they never played live.
It is a good parlay. So, two, I'll note there's two musical, ambitions of mine. The first was to see Enya live. That one may not happen. That one just might not happen. The second nub I got to share with you in the audience is I purchased something I've musically wanted for a long, long time and never had. It's a piece of equipment. Do you know what it is? Did I tell you this yet?
You didn't. I have a guess. I think it's the same as mine. So I'm going to be if it is, I'm going to be a little bit jealous. Did you buy a Fender Rhodes piano?
No, but that's awesome. Did you buy one of those?
No, but that's been at the top of my list.
Okay.
That's my ultimate, like, if I hit the jackpot tomorrow, like the first thing I'd buy is like a new, or like a good shaped Fender Rhodes.
No, this is much less of an expense. This is, I bought a marching snare drum.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I finally, I've wanted to own and operate a marching snare. Can I give you a little taste of it?
Why? Yes, you can.
You want a little bit? All right.
Yes.
Ready? Here we go. Okay. So hang on. I got it sort of set up over here. Got that? You hear that?
Yeah. Loud and clear, buddy.
Hey, did that come through? Did that come out a little bit?
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah,
you sound like a regular, member of the best damn band in the land.
Well, exactly. Well, notice I'm going right to the JFK, drummer salute stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
But I've always wanted one of those damn things, so I finally got one. So now I just got to check the Enya thing off the list. But I don't think that's going to happen. Now, the amount of attention and prestige and record sales that this artist has achieved is just astounding and completely unique in that it's somebody who, she like lives in like a castle, like out in the middle of nowhere and hardly ever leaves. Right. Doesn't tour, doesn't promote. Really? It seemed like, the clip I played from the top was a CBS This Morning appearance back in 2001. The reason why that was easy to isolate is because I don't think she ever did anything like that before or after or since. So how do you find a way, even still today, to sell this many albums and gain this sort of notoriety as an artist without having to jump through the hoops that most in the music business do? And I think it's by being authentic, coming up with something original. This is a rare instance in Music Nub where Enya sort of came up with a sound and an approach that couldn't be replicated, couldn't be copied. No one's been able to mimic it because it would just be too obvious and too noticeable. So she's literally been able to carve out this sort of, I don't know, call it what you want, new age pop sensibility and approach that has basically created a territory, and did so really by kind of taking a gamble on a sound that was extremely original. But I don't know if you can think of another instance like that, Nub. Every other genre has had somebody who can come in and sort of say, oh, I want to do that too, and reap some of the benefits. You really haven't seen that with Enya's music at all. It's always been hers, and maybe always will.
I think that Kate Bush is a good comparison. I think sneakily Elton John.
Oh, will you stop talking about Kate Bush?
yeah, exactly. No, I won't. I can't. I think sneakily Elton John is a good comparison, just in the sense of one person literally sort of taking over the world kind of on their own, but doing it with a different approach and a different kind of personality and all those things. Certainly there's no comparisons in sound between Elton John and Enya, but I think I agree with everything you said, but what has to be added to it, that's a huge part of this story, is the aspect of being global. Because in 1991, which is this album, but this was like not her first record. The idea of being global was not only a lot harder than it is now, but it also was way, way more unique. I mean, Enya's music was like one of the things that kind of told an 11-year-old me that like, oh yeah, it's like a big world out there.
Yeah.
I mean, she was huge in New Zealand. She was huge in Europe. She was obviously big in the US. That's one of the takeaways for me, was it was an early lesson of, well, this music thing is global. This was a global artist. And that's why she was so wildly successful. It was not just the US. It was what she did everywhere else.
It's a great point. Important point. Hey, Nubs ate his Wheaties today. He brought his A game. That's an excellent point. Let's see if he brought his A game as we go round and round. Nub, lots of new releases, as you mentioned. Which ones have you been plowing through?
Actually, a lot of new releases, but my round and round right now isn't as new release heavy, except for one, which is a live album, An Evening with Silk Sonic. Do you know what Silk Sonic is, T?
I don't think so, man.
Silk Sonic is the collaboration between Bruno Mars and Anderson .Paak.
Oh,
and
okay.
Also has a little Bootsy Collins weaved into there. And we went to Vegas a few weeks back, because we have not been to Vegas since before pandemic, and love Vegas, and really wanted to go, and we went. And, instead of going to like a nightclub, which was one of the original ideas, it's like, oh, let's go to a club and get bottle service, lamest thing ever. I was like, you know what, why don't we like find like a great show that's happening and maybe like go see some music? And it took like 2 seconds to realize that Silk Sonic, Bruno Mars, and Anderson .Paak were doing this residency in Vegas. So we bought the way too expensive tickets and went. And it was a remarkable show. It was one of those deals where like you think it's going to be one way, and then you show up and it's like, wow, this was way better than I thought. Very retro, big throwback to sort of Motown and Parliament Funkadelic, like real funk references, and just this relentless nonstop groove.
Bruno Mars is the real deal, not just in terms of talent, which is evident, but in terms of being an artist and having that appreciation. Always been unheralded about that guy.
So much credibility, so much. And you're right, appreciation. That's what this project seems to be about. And Anderson .Paak's a drummer, and it's the whole thing is so cool. And the show was amazing. I mean, we just had so much fun. And so they put out An Evening with Silk Sonic, the live album, which, of course, has been on rotation. But one of the cool things about this show, T, and I don't know if you've had this experience yet, when you show up, as you give your, ticket, or what used to be a ticket, now it's like your phone, and go into the show, they take your phone away. They had a strict no cell phone policy for the crowd. And well, they didn't take it away. They gave you this secure bag that you put it in, and then you hold that all night. And then at the end, as you're walking out, they use this special key to open the bag and give you your phone back. So you have no access to your phones. Yeah. And I got to tell you, dude, after going to shows for the last several years, it was so refreshing.
I bet.
To not see fucking phones around.
Yeah.
Stupid, like taking pictures of the show, taking selfies, trying to get
especially
video.
At a show like that. That's a great, good for them, because a Vegas Bruno Mars production, that would probably encourage a lot of, based on the attendees and sort of the fan base that's there, it would probably be annoyingly high resonance of people using their phones. So good for them. That's awesome.
And it would give away the whole imagery of the show, all the surprises they did. And above all, people were really engaged with the show. People were dialed into the music. And so it was so cool. And I just call on every band that can to put this into practice. I know it would be added expense, and I know that there's some headache there, but it was so nice to just enjoy a show without my phone, but more importantly, without anybody else being obnoxious. And so that was really nice. So an evening with Silk Sonic, the live capturing of this has been on rotation, and
that's great.
Love it for sure. Second is an album by a really underrated sub pop band, Constantine's. Their debut is one of my favorite albums, really unheralded, underrated. One of their follow-up albums, Tournament of Hearts, just recently got a copy of that. Love it. Constantine's a really, really good band. And then another one of these overlooked gems from the 90s. Again, previewing a show to come. But there's an album by a band called The Grays. The album's called Rochambeau, which is kind of funny because all I think about there is the South Park reference to what a Rochambeau is.
Rochambeau, you in the knits? Yeah,
exactly. But it's the band is The Grays, and it includes Jason Faulkner. Do you remember what band Jason Faulkner was in?
Definitely know the name. Forget the band.
He's one of the key members of Jellyfish. And so when Jellyfish fell apart, Jason Faulkner did a few different things, but one of which is he started this band, The Grays. In Rochambeau, it's perfect pop rock songwriting. It's great 90s album. Really, really, really good stuff. You should check it out, especially as a big Jellyfish fan. Like Enya, another group that you are, another artist that you kind of carried the flag for. Before,
we should maybe do a Jellyfish at some point,
Yeah. It would be great. It'd be a great episode. So what is spinning around for you, man?
Nubs, I got the new Liam Gallagher. It's called Come On, I haven't plowed through it yet. Have you?
Yes, and it's great. His solo albums, aside from the first Noel Gallagher Flying Birds album, the second one's pretty good too. But now Liam's moved out in front because the last Noel stuff has been awful.
Yeah.
Festival rock.
And who does the songwriting for Liam's records? Is he writing the songs?
I think so.
Wow.
Certainly a heavy hand in it. Yeah.
Oh, okay, good. Well, that makes me even more excited. I'm going to get through that one.
I'm like Team Liam now. He loves Be Here Now, and he embraces all the good things about rock and roll. He's still making rock and roll music, whereas Noel Noel thinks he's an electronic artist.
Yeah, that's right. And it's a good point. And also Liam has said Oasis should get back together, essentially.
He's in.
He's in. He's ready. In. And so showing that it's probably a Noel thing at this point. So yeah, you do have to give him props for that. Def Leppard, Diamond Star Halos. Have you heard this?
I have.
And? Okay.
Same as their last few.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
The single is really good. Take What You Want was really good. And I was like, oh man, are these guys getting back to a little old school here? But okay. All right. Well, TBD on that. And then the third is Florence and the Machine, who I enjoy. Dance Fever is the name of this one. Now, I keep giving these round and rounds, and I haven't listened to them yet. So it's like about.
I was going to say, you haven't even listening.
Yeah. About to be round and round. But that's right. When these new releases start to pile up, that kind of happens. And
what's your system? How do you listen to everything through your phone and just try and tackle it as you go? Or do you have, what do you buy things on CD and then you rip them? Is that your move?
Usually, yeah. Yeah, for the most part, buy it on CD. And I mean, I don't even have a CD player in my car anymore. So
I know it sucks.
so, I mostly just do that because I still like buying CDs and it's a better rip when you turn it into digital than it is downloading these crappy files that exist.
And then do you keep the CD or does it depend on?
Depends.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it totally depends. But finding the right windows, finding the right, opportunity, and then, because I don't like to listen to like half of it. I like to be able to like, all right, if I start it now, I'll get through the whole thing, So the beauty of two twins in an album, hopefully, is you go from Queensryche to this. A little something kind of different. Why don't we get into the nerdy deets and we'll tell you all about it.
You want some dirty deeds? Yeah. You want some dirty deeds?
Shepherd Moons was released on November 4th, 1991. Happy birthday, Snots. Big Brother Snots on that one, eh? One of the people, Enya's Enya. She doesn't need a last name. Has indeed carved out not just a genre, but to Nubs' earlier point, a global genre for this type of music. But she did not do it alone. And Nicky Ryan is a dude who needs to be acknowledged as part of the Enya story. Nicky Ryan was part of Enya's previous band, which was a family band. She had several siblings that were part of and then an uncle and whatever. It was the Brennan family, essentially, that formed the band Clannad out of Ireland, who, kind of started to develop a sound that was a little bit unique. This started in the late 70s and through the early mid 80s. And Enya was very involved with Clannad. And if you listen back, it's pretty raw. It's pretty traditional and these type of things. But if you're really trying to formulate the story of how Enya and Nicky Ryan sort of took this genre and turned it into something that's very accessible and fairly pop oriented, it's a good kind of way to sort of dig back and get a feel for that. Nicky Ryan had a vision. He clearly had a vision for Enya and for the sound that they wanted to generate together. And he's the primary producer, a huge hand in composition, and is essentially, this is almost like a duo, I would say, more so than it is a pure solo project. And he's been there from the beginning and he's still there today. He was the manager, a little bit more on the periphery with the Clannad project, and basically went to Enya and said, hey, I've got a sound, I've got a vision. I think you're a big part of it. And what do you say we ditch this group and go, do our thing and take over the world in terms of this genre? And Enya Brennan said, all right, count me in. So Nicky and Enya left Clannad together, essentially built a home studio at Nicky's residence. Enya and Nicky and his wife, Roma, who actually writes all the lyrics. She's a poet. The three of them kind of cooped up at this home studio and started to work through what this sound would be. The first example of it was actually a soundtrack from a BBC series called The Celts, which was also basically Enya's first self-titled album. And it was well received. It was obviously a good platform. To your earlier point, Nub, sometimes you use TV and other mediums to kind of push your music. Well, Enya's first album was technically a soundtrack for this BBC show, The Celts. That led to signing with Warner Records, and that led to 1988's Watermark, which led by what has become a pretty timeless classic song that you almost can't get away from, called Orinoco Flow, otherwise known as Sail Away, Sail Away, Sail Away.
Yeah, you can't say it without singing it, right? That's one of those.
That's right. Now, here's what's amazing about Orinoco Flow, man. Nominated in 1988 for Best New Age Performance, the Grammy. It didn't win. It was like, wait a minute, what? And do you know why? Do you know what beat Orinoco Flow for Best New Age Performance?
No, but if it's anything other than Brian Eno, I'm going to be pissed.
Well, it may be second best to you because there's a definite tie-in to something that you love. It was Peter Gabriel and his performance on the Last Temptation of Christ album, which,
hey, that is a work of genius.
It
I will
is.
say
So,
that. It is.
So I saw that. It was funny. I saw it and I saw it nominated for a Grammy. I was like, what the hell beat that? And then I saw it was Last Temptation of Christ. It was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, all right, I suppose.
That's just bad luck for Enya. Because any other year, and I'm not saying that Passion should have beat it because I don't, I'm not well versed enough in the New Age world. I could just tell you that both are incredibly amazing works.
Yeah.
But that Gabriel soundtrack it's landmark. I mean, people point to that still as a game changer.
Yeah. It wasn't a Jethro Tull Metallica moment, at least. It was like, okay,
right, yeah.
I get it. Right. So Nicky Ryan, interesting guy, interesting musician and very interesting visionary. He taught deaf school children before he started working with Clannad, and he was sort of teaching them through music and sound and figuring out a way to get these deaf students to kind of understand and feel music. So he developed this low end system to get them to feel rhythms and sort of thumping beats and all these type of things. And you hear a lot of that. I think that's really what separates it from swirling new age music is the low end sort of bottom feeding nature of some of the bass and some of the, sort of progressions you get underneath these things. And a lot of that stems back from, his kind of approach to teaching, deaf students how to receive music, which is very cool. The thing that really, though, Nub, I think defines, and this is a very modern concept, which is interesting, but the thing that really, I think, defines the Enya sound is the use of multi-track voice. It's this kind of wall of sound idea. And that's really what inspired, Nicky to take this approach. But, go all the way back to episode 1 for us, right? Where we talked about In Utero, how Butch Vig on the previous record, Nevermind, had to sort of convince Kurt Cobain to multi-track. And in order to sell him in on this, he said, well, John Lennon did it. And Kurt Cobain was like, well, okay, if John Lennon did it, I guess it's not that bad. But that was basically like multi-tracking 2 voices, maybe 3. Nicky Ryan's vision for Enya was let's multi-track like 60, And
right. Yeah.
And I guess part of and there's a lot of production to this. Maybe that's part of why she doesn't play live, but you got DAT tape and backtracks and things. You could accomplish that. Come on, Enya, let's go on tour. Come on.
Yeah. I was going to jump in when you started talking about multi-tracking and make the Nirvana reference of like doubling your voice. I don't know the exact number. I don't know if 60 was hyperbole or not, but it sounds like there might be upwards of, 40, 50 voices on here.
Oh yeah. No question.
I think what stood out to me in terms of learning a little bit more about Enya is that she was responsible for much, much more of the music than I would have ever thought. I actually thought it would have been a little more of the opposite, that Enya was just sort of the singer and the front figure, wrote the lyrics, and then somebody else was doing all of the textures and melodies and things. It's actually really the opposite. She was very, very responsible for the sonic aspect of it and the songwriting from a music perspective, but not the lyrics. And so definite collaboration, no doubt about it. But I am impressed with her proficiency with a variety of different instruments. And that, again, that just gives a lot of credibility. If this was some made for TV pop star that they wanted to build the Celtic sound through, then that'd be a little more, that'd be a little more harder to accept. But this is clearly an extremely talented musician who's buried in her art and Yeah, she's the real deal. There's no doubt about it.
So do you think having a beer with Enya would be fun? Or do you think it would be like, too intense?
I mean, she is Irish. So I would say have a Guinness. Because
Right.
as you and I both know, the Guinness in Ireland is like
She
ice
probably
cream.
drinks some like strange like wine or something. She probably has a very specific.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a beer with Enya might not be fun.
It's kind of like playing golf with Tom Brady. A lot of people are like, well, yeah, that'd be awesome. It's actually be awful because he's like apparently so competitive and so intense
Right.
that it's not fun. I'm thinking of the same concept here. Like, would it maybe just be too much?
It's a great comparison, actually. Yeah, I think it would probably be too much. But, we wouldn't know because she's never, not that she has any requirement to do so. And I respect that she hasn't, but she's never really let the public in.
Yeah. You'd have to locate her castle out in rural Ireland,
Yeah.
knock on the door and say, hey, Enya, it's me, just random person. You want to grab a beer real quick inside of your cat? I feel like she wouldn't let you in. That's just my first instinct is that she probably wouldn't open the door to you.
No, I don't think we're dealing with a real extrovert here who likes people,
Yeah. Well, but she's a very sweet lady. Like hearing her interview, she's not a recluse or something, but just doesn't, she just doesn't. And listen, we all have those days where you just want to hide in your castle all day. But
I hate to say it, man, but Kate Bush, same deal. They're so similar, man. They really are.
It's
same
true.
deal.
It's true. Well, but did Kate Bush sing in 10 different languages? That's a question.
No, but she sang in a few. Did some French.
Well, Enya has sung in 10 languages. Most often it's English, Irish, Gaelic, Welsh, and Latin. But there's some other crazy stuff in there. But yeah, it's always, her lyrics are not easy to understand. I've been listening to her for, 30 years plus, and I still don't really know or care what is going on lyrically. But it is interesting that Roma Ryan and Nikki Ryan, this married artist duo, are kind of Enya's backbone. She does not like the term new age. I think she kind of winces at that a little bit, and which I think is fair because it is an original sound, and new age music sometimes gets a little avant-garde and a little out there. And I think Enya realizes that she's a pop artist. I think she does. And I don't think that bothers her. And this whole operation certainly has been unafraid to be commercial over time. I think that's pretty evident. There's one thing that I wanted to touch on that's kind of funny. And maybe this, implies that having a beer with her would be kind of fun because, even in her biggest global iconic hit song, she's got, somebody in there, whether it's her or whether it's her lyricist, has a little bit of a sense of humor. There's a line that says, with Rob Dickens at the wheel. You know who Rob Dickens is? He's the guy who he works for Warner. He's the guy who signed Enya to Warner Records.
Oh, really?
Right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. With Rob Dickens at the wheel. It's like kind of like, here we go.
Yeah. Okay. And that's in Sail Away.
Yeah. And then there's another line that says, we can say goodbye, Ross and his dependencies. Now, it's an ode to Ross Collum, who was the co-producer of Watermark. But I had to look up because it's a play on words. The Ross dependency it's the name of a treaty sort of region within Antarctica that was claimed by New Zealand. It's called the Ross dependency. And, it's population about 300 people. It's all research stations, but it's a territory in Antarctica. And she used not just Ross Collum, the producer, but Ross and his dependencies as a play on words of this obscure piece of land in Antarctica. So, hey, who says Enya can't have a good time? Yeah.
What a barrel of fun.
Yeah. Come on, man. Like,
this chick's ready to party.
I know it spent me, I spent like 7 minutes figuring out what this quip was within her song, but listen, clearly there's an element there of not taking it too seriously, which sometimes this could get pretty whimsical and sometimes fairly dramatic. But I think it's a project that always stayed fairly grounded and fairly humble, certainly. And regardless of the success, never took itself insanely seriously. Well, let's see how seriously you're going to take yourself, Nub, as we tell our Enya wonder story. You ready to roll on that?
Absolutely.
All right, let's go. All right, buddy. How and when did you discover this global artist? And what are your overall thoughts on the experience with her?
Well, I have this twin brother. I don't know if you've ever heard of him before, but he got really into Enya at a time when most people did not. The thing I think I remember most about this is the Far and Away movie with Tom Cruise, Nicole Kidman.
Yes.
The theme to that.
Not Eyes Wide Shut, but Far and Away.
Right. Different.
Two different films. Yeah.
Different stories. The theme song, at least in the promos, the trailers, was from tonight's album. Sail Away was big. It was that one too was used in commercials or something. I can't remember what.
Oh God, several.
Yeah.
I mean, several shows, probably a couple movies, lots of commercials. Yeah, no question. I mean, Orinoco Flow is probably a timeless song, really.
Yeah, massive, in a big marketing piece for sure. So, but I one of the things that stands out is you buying these the CDs, the super high material Japan imports. You I don't know where you found them, but I
still have them, the SHMs. Yeah.
Yes. Her entire catalog on SHM. And one time when I was over at your house many years ago, I imported those into my iTunes. It just created like an Enya playlist. And that stood out because you made such an investment. Those were not cheap. And you bought the entire catalog, I think top to bottom. So I've always been interested just because you were so interested. I think what's really important to note is I've never been a big Enya fan. The music itself is just never something I've connected that strongly with. But I am very into space music. I mean, one of the most influential albums in my life was Brian Eno's Ambient One Music for Airports. So it's not that I'm against this style. I adore this style of music and have tremendous respect for it. But I tend to like the original, the cluster and like harmonium and like the German scene where people
which had to be something Nicky Ryan was into. I mean, you can hear it in a lot of there's even some clever time signature stuff going on with Enya music, that does take you back to some of this kraut genre, right?
For sure. If you listen to music for airports, which again, I mean, it's a pivotal album in new age and space music. Pivotal, ambient is what became the hip term. Even the way that was using voices, these wordless voices that came in, in one stereo channel and out the other, and you hear that a ton in Enya's music, a ton. I mean, it's like one of the cornerstones of her sound. It's maybe a little bit overly Celtic for me too. And, Irish culture and Irish music, it's just never really been. I mean, we loved going there, of course, but I am looking forward to hearing like exactly how you've discovered it. I want to say somebody at school. Like, was there somebody at school that like?
Yes,
I think there was a person, if I remember.
Well, and we've talked about this person before. So this is Dave S.
Oh, Dave S. Not to be confused with Froggy.
Right.
Froggy.
Or Mike G or any of the other idiots we've talked about in the past. But Dave S. we talked about in the White Album episode, because his dad was a big Beatles guy and sort of got us looped in on some of the later Beatles work. And he just was this guy just had he and his dad both, but really, this kid just had really good musical taste and really good appreciation. And I remember was into full albums and album tracks and just all kinds of eye-opening stuff as you're sort of looking to some of your peers to learn more how to be not just a fan, but a music appreciator. And he really was. So I remember him telling me about this Enya thing and this Clannad thing. And it was like, all right, I trust this kid. Like, let's see what's up here. And then he played Orinoco Flow, and it was like, yeah, I know that. I saw that in a commercial and whatever. But Shepherd Moons was the one that really hit home. Now, I listened to this every single night at bedtime. I don't know if you could hear it on the other side of the wall. I could sort of hear it over the Cinemax a little bit. Right? Yeah.
It provided nice bed music for what I was viewing.
Trying to help you out. Yeah.
Yeah.
But for years, every single night. And in fact, there's a point of the record, we'll get to it in the track by track, that it starts to kind of fall off a little bit in terms of familiarity, because I would always conk out, so in terms of something that really helped get a sort of wound up teenager like me calm and cool and ready to go night, ready to go sleepy times. This did the trick. And I'm telling you, every night for this is even through high school. I mean, probably for like 6 or 7 years, was Shepherd Moon. So definitely a one that, hits close to home and connects close to home. But, recently she put these out as reissues on vinyl, and listening to this on vinyl is just really interesting, and especially that there are original pressings. Do you have the original pressings, or do you have the reissues, or what direction did you go on this one?
I have Watermark and Shepherd Moons on original pressing.
Yeah.
But it's like 90s vinyl, very flimsy.
Yeah.
Doesn't sound great. And plus, this is one genre I don't love on vinyl because the music is so quiet. And sometimes it's one of those times where the vinyl sounds and the sounds of the needle gets a little bit in the way.
It's true.
I prefer this on CD, actually.
Well, for sure. I mean, it's very digital, and, the analog treatment of it, like I said, is pretty interesting, but it definitely doesn't capture the full sort of essence of it. So yeah, this was a record that, I mean, the amount of times it would probably rival, just in terms of volume and play count, it would probably rival anything, that I've indulged in over time, just because it was a nightly routine. So yeah, I mean, it's an artist. I've always loved her. I've always wanted to see her live. I've always wanted more, but maybe that's part of the appeal, is that, she doesn't overexpose herself or her work or, promotionally or any of these things. And she seems to always, when she has a tremendous amount of fans, and obviously has been hugely successful. And I think part of that is kind of leaving them wanting more. She kind of did this Christmas thing 10 years ago, which I didn't really like, and then put out another studio album in 2015 called Dark Sky Island. So, I think it's about time. I think we're on this sort of, the progression here of new studio work every 7 or 8 years, or whenever she damn well feels like it. I think we're due, man. So Enya, I know you're listening. Go on tour and release a new album. Let's go. LFG, Enya. Enough. All right.
How old is she now, T?
She is, I'm gonna have to look this up. So I don't want to get her age wrong. Then she'll
definitely find you.
Well, yeah, she won't have a crush on me if I screw up her age, right?
Right, exactly.
That's ultimately what I'm going for. She's 61 years old. So 61, yeah.
61, living in a castle. I don't know, man.
And still looks like she's 30 if you see her today.
It's true. So, she does look amazing.
Yeah.
Always sort of did. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. Well, Nub, want to dig into it?
I do. Let's dig. Let's do it.
Here we go. Let's go.
I
can't tell you how many times I've heard this intro. And actually, I forgot to mention this during Wonder Stories, but now my kids are super into it, which is awesome. So like they both are now wanting to hear Enya and Lord knows they need it to sort of calm down and
exactly
chill out a little bit, for God's sake. But so I'm still hearing this intro to this day, granted for a new audience internally here. But the opening track, the title track, is one that many people would recognize. Many people that, whether it was at night or in the morning or during the day or whenever it may have been, decided to give Shepherd Moons a spin. And that is the title track of Shepherd Moons. It's an instrumental, except for the oohs and ahs. And, one that kind of sets the tone here with something that's a little more smooth. Now you get into some fairly upbeat, fairly, in some cases waltzy and rhythmic things eventually on Shepherd Moons, but this one kind of eases you into it.
This is ambient in the true sense with all the kind of background lush noises. But what stands out about this one is that sort of, and I never know the instruments she's using ever. Harpsichord, I'm not sure, but those kind of single notes.
Well, a lot of it is it's actually a Roland D50, which actually hadn't been used a lot in this genre. It was more of a progressive sort of rock tool or just a pure synth tool. So yeah, that's the other thing that's kind of interesting about this sound is it used a lot of more sort of vintage analog approaches, which again, Nicky Ryan had to be into the Eno stuff and some of the krautrock stuff, just had to be. Part of what makes it cool is this wasn't all just modern sounds and modern effects. This was a lot of stuff that sort of just takes you back to pure synth approach.
Yeah, no doubt about it. That is one of the things that makes it fun. If this album was made, if any of Enya's work was made today, it'd be a lot easier to pull off. I mean, you are talking about analog synths, some early digital synths, and, certainly some analog instruments too. So a lot of skill into that, but those single notes, I think, are what stand out. Those are what kind of add to the texture of this one and make it stand out a little bit more.
Track 2 is quite the waltz and certainly one of the more well-known Enya tunes, Caribbean Blue. So there's that low end, if you were to see this live, the woofers would be going nuts on something like that because it's a really strong low end. That's that element of Nicky Ryan's approach when he was, trying to introduce music to deaf students and get the floor to shake, and get them to sort of feel that bounce throughout their whole body. That's really evident here. It's a waltz that doesn't feel like a waltz because it is very poppy. Beautiful layers, as you often get. But I think what really sets it apart, and there's a lot of this on Shepherd Moons, are these kind of swirling vocals, these riffy almost moves sort of at the high end, but then that low end bass progression that really takes you through it. It's a great record to listen to in a car or on good speakers, like with a good subwoofer or something. It's a really, really nice listen.
Far and away my favorite Enya song. I think it's a brilliant, brilliant work. It's very commercial, actually, if you think about it. It's the way you made a great point, the way that it's mixed, even the elements within it, pretty radio friendly. And I'm sure it didn't get a lot of radio play. That's not how Enya did her thing, but it's catchy. It's very catchy in just about every section of it.
Oh, yeah.
But I think the opening, that the way that the melody kind of trickles in, teases, there's lots of like build and release and then drop in this song. So dynamic wise, it's playing with all sorts of really fun ideas. It's an absolutely brilliant song. I don't think she ever did anything quite to this level on following works. I like this one a lot better than Sail Away. I actually think this should have been the bigger hit. Mm-hmm. It wasn't, because it wasn't quite as catchy, but yeah, this is on my playlist and regularly comes up and I never flip through it. It's an absolutely fantastic song.
Nice. Well, I agree with you, but there is one song later on the record that I think trumps it. But until then, we get to track 3, which kind of brings things down a little bit. And that is, How Can I Keep From Singing? So it's obviously really pretty. This is almost Enya like acoustic, it's basically her voice and a low end progression. And that's pretty much it. Now there's multi-track and those things, but this is really stripped down and it's really pretty, and I think it's a good track 3. I think it sets up on the album well.
It does start to get into that idea you mentioned earlier of like, how would she pull this off live? Because those background voices are so important. I would have loved to mix Enya, because think about just all the cool stuff you could do with things coming in and out. I mentioned it earlier talking about Eno, but those background voices, as challenging as they would be to mix and to get them all right, there's so many placements that they use, especially in this song, that just really work.
Yeah, definitely. Track 4 is a quick hitter called Ibudai. It's pretty well known, albeit a quick hitter, and it takes you into track 5, which is called Angelis. Now, for some reason, this was the time period, Nub, where I started to really get sleepy.
I was just gonna say, this has got to be around the time where you were out.
Yeah, I was starting to think about maybe conking out, but the lyric there, it sounds like she's saying go to sleep. She's not, but I always heard that, and I would just get nice and nuzzled up. It's like, all right. But it's a highly produced track. It's not my favorite, but it does sort of, the first half of this record, I do like the way it progresses, and I think the sort of chant, almost like tribal sound of Ibuda kind of takes you into something that's a little bit more sweeping with Anjali. So I think it's a kind of a 2-track approach that works well. Track 6 is called No Holly for Miss Quinn. Now, I believe that this is sort of meant to tee up Book of Days. I always see the two as kind of, it's an instrumental and it's just piano, basically. I always felt like these were sort of a little bit of a two-headed monster. But Book of Days, interested in your thoughts on it. Let's just play it. All right, now I'm sorry, but you can fly down the highway to this song. I think this is an incredible piece of music that has energy in a way that sometimes Enya music has a hard time capturing. It's upbeat. This is extremely upbeat for her. Obviously, it was part of the movie you mentioned earlier and all that. But if you just, which was a single, it's certainly one of her most famous songs. But this is something that you can almost listen to kind of get you pumped up. This is something that has a lot of backbone, a lot of backbeat. The timpani and the sort of sleigh bells that keep the rhythm going are just gorgeous, and a perfect backdrop to something that has, in my opinion, not just incredible progressions and melodies in a way that was probably unique to a lot of her music, is something that really brought a nice energy to it. I think it's her best song.
In a very worthy choice for it. I love that you use the word energy, because this could be like on a running playlist, right? Like a Peloton playlist. And it's rare for her to have that. I do like the sleigh bells and the timpani. I think that really gives it pace. Her ability to know what a pop hook would be is sort of underrated. I don't think she did it enough, T. Yeah. You know, I think every album, instead of having 2 or 3 of these sort of moments, should have had, a lot more.
Definite pop artist, and Nikki Ryan, definitely a pop producer. I mean, there's no question that who knows who had more of that viewpoint and vision than the other, but they were not afraid to take a pop angle, and certainly on this record.
Well, one of the things that stands out about it's 2 minutes and 56 seconds long. You ain't doing that if you're not looking to be on the radio. I mean, this song could have been fleshed out way more.
Oh yeah.
If you wanted to create something even more epic, and from like a artistic standpoint, really reference a few things and extend the intro and extend the outro and do something even more beautiful in the middle. But they squeezed it down to be clearly a pop single.
Yeah.
Which it became. And it became a successful one. It's certainly boosted by its use in that movie. The movie was god awful, if you remember right.
Yeah, I think it was really bad.
It was terrible. But the song became really significant. I know that it charted well in a bunch of countries. I think it did okay in the US, but I think it was really big in like the UK and
yeah.
But it does have that energy, and I think that I would love to see her explore more of that. No doubt.
Yeah, agreed. So now at this point, I'm pretty much zonked.
Yeah, you're outskirts, man.
Yeah, I'm pretty much done. Like, especially after that. Now that one, I had to be careful with Book of Days that it didn't sort of wake you back up, make you want to go like run a lap around the house. But my goal was always to stay awake until Book of Days. After that, all bets were off. So, what we're going to do, we're going to just sort of fly through that we're going to combine the last 5 and then we'll just sort of wrap it up. And it's not to say that the back half of this album isn't good or worthwhile, but Nubs, I was just usually asleep by now.
Yeah. You're if we're being authentic about our experience with the album, you're conked out at this point.
Yeah. Put a fork in me. I'm done.
Right. Exactly.
Lights out and meatball at this point.
Yeah.
Well, let's do it. Track 8 is called Evacuee.
I must wait until it's over.
Nice addition there of the trumpet. I think Nikki Ryan actually played that, believe it or not. Track 9 is called Lothiorian. Just a quick hitter instrumental there, which obviously you see a couple other times on the record, and these guys like doing that in the full context of an album, which was often a nice little break or even served as a tee up to the next track. And what that tees up is track 10, Marble Halls. I was already asleep by now, but this, you could just have a wonderful dream over. I think I was dreaming about like I don't know, like flying a kite, or something, right? Or just like chasing a rainbow,
I'm gonna guess that in your teenage years it was different type of dreams.
Could have been something else. Yeah. But
maybe dream about Enya. Maybe
you know what? I think I was flying a kite with Enya. Yeah, that's probably that's probably correct. Our
running through the fields flying a kite. Yeah,
that's right. Second to last track is track 11. It's called, I'm probably butchering this, but it's called Affer Ventus. Could have been a pop song. You could do a rock cover of this. By the way, I don't know if I said this. I didn't say this during the Wonder Stories, but I do have a cover of On My Way Home, which was an Enya song off Memory of Trees, which was the album after this. So, you could do a little rock and roll version of certain Enya songs, and I think that's one of them. The closing track is called, I think, Samoa Inte. Starts with an S. Track 12. A song that kind of has two parts. The first is sort of something that's a bit more slow and sort of deliberate, and then it takes you into that section, which really takes you out of the album, which is just this really pretty progression that brings in some layers and some instrumentation and those type of things. And there you go, 12 tracks.
I will say I think that's one of the best sections of the album.
Yeah,
it's very thoughtful outro. Albums that are a little of this nature tend to, you want to focus on the way it ends, because there's usually some intention behind ending it in a sort of, not necessarily grand, but some sort of usually emotional way. Let's put it that way. And that certainly captures, it's a great melody.
And as I just mentioned, her follow-up album to this, In Memory of Trees, which is another outstanding record, closes with this song On My Way Home, the one that I did a little cover version of. That actually, I think I said earlier, Book of Days is her best song. On My Way Home is actually her best song, easily. And yeah, very interesting that she put that at the end. It was a clear single and a clear sort of poppy approach that, again, you can make a rock song out of, and chose to put it last. So it seems like there was always a focus on this sort of bookends approach to the record. She always closed her albums in really strong fashion, and I think that, again, this progression, while it's not as poppy and a little bit more sort of swirling, is a really kind of beautiful way to wrap up what most would consider a fairly beautiful album. So, Nub, how beautiful did you consider it? And how does this stuff hold up today? I think that that's a really interesting question. This is going back 30 years ago. And, particularly a genre that's so niche-y and that's so unique, you kind of wonder if it still is something that could be deemed, relevant in the proper mood and proper moment today. What do you think? How did it hold up? And how important do you think that this sort of whole wave of Enya music was back then, or even still today?
I think it holds up very well because of the talent that's on display. There's just raw talent from Enya and her collaborators, all sort of, and I feel like this album is sort of maybe at the top of their game. You know, they've had some success. The confidence must have been high. And there's just so much into this musically that just reveals sheer, unarguable talent. Because of the sound, it actually holds up pretty well. None of it sounds dated. Maybe some of it even sounds better today than it did back then because there's some retro aspects of it. There's a purity to the music. It wasn't all just sequenced and like spit out of a computer. So in all those ways, I think it holds up very well. I think Enya is ripe for a rediscovery. I do. I wonder if Stranger Things will at some point, you know, use an Enya song.
I'm sure it will.
Exactly. So I think it holds up really well. So yeah, I mean, you know, this is the nice part about sort of new agey type of music, space music, ambient music is I think it's really timeless. You know, music for airports still sounds as fresh as it did in the 1970s.
Right.
And so, yeah, I think there's a timelessness aspect to it. So,
well, and also the fact that there wasn't an image, you know, it's like a lot of hair metal music gets a bad rap because of the image tied to it. A lot of jam band music gets right. So there are these genres that sometimes don't hold up well. And it's not because of the music. It's because of sort of the elements that surrounded it and the overexposure or over promotion or personalities or annoyance or whatever. The fact that Enya always sat back and just let the music sort of do the talking for her probably helps the ability for it to create longevity, because you don't hear this music and think of, oh, Enya, who is in the tabloids all the time, or, you know, or whatever, like overexposed or self-indulgent or whatever it may be. That probably helps, I would think, for this to sustain over time.
It's a great take. I agree 100%. Everything just seems very pure, you know, maybe too pure. Maybe that's one of the things that held her back from even greater success. But the other thing, I think it matters because, again, of the global international aspect of it. I mean, it was big for me to realize through music, through Enya as an artist, like it's a big world out there. And something can be really big in other places than just, you know, our little hometown here. And that music is a good way for young people to learn that. I think it's gone now because the whole world is connected and global. But back then this was a big deal that she was such an international star, you know, international presence, maybe is the better word.
Yep.
So how's it hold up for you two?
Quite good. I mean, you know, again, I think that, you know, the music speaks for itself, and there's a mood and a time and a place for this. The fact that it's poppy and catchy and melodic, I mean, those we've seen over time that those elements of music can be timeless if it's memorable. And, you know, the ability, I mean, this musical marriage, it's almost like a three-way marriage between Nikki, Roma, and Enya in developing the right tone, the right feel. They had a feel, you know, for this clearly, right? And this hadn't been done before, and clearly they had a feel for not just, you know, what this needed to sound like, but what was going to sustain over time. And you got to give them credit for that. So, but yeah, to kind of take this approach and make it so that it can be poppy, it can be accessible, and, you know, obviously can be very successful here. It's quite the deal when you think on the deal here, when you think about the fact that these guys were able to create a multi-decade career out of this artist, this style of music. Now, I thought In Memory of Trees, which came after Shepherd Moons, was excellent, almost as good. And nothing really since then has been as good. And I'm not sure why exactly. I'm not sure if things got sort of too repetitive or too.
There's some limits to the genre. There are.
Yeah.
I mean, you can only do so much of it, right? Before you do start repeating. Yeah. That's what I heard in all the later work for sure.
Yeah. No, it's a good point. Very fair point. And, you know, maybe the artists themselves would even agree with that. But then after that, the catalog starts to thin out a little bit and level off a little bit, which, to your point, may be just kind of part of, you know, what's anticipated, because you are a little bit in a box, you know, with this in terms of instrumentation, in terms of progressions, in terms of, your ability to keep doing it. But hey, that does not mean I ain't ready for another Enya record. So let's go. I know she's listening. All right. Well, let's get to the final cut, buddy. Is this one on the turntable? Is this in the collection? Is this collecting dust? Or is this going to the for sale bin for you, Nub? Where do you got Shepherd Moons?
I put Shepherd Moons and Watermark in terms of collecting dust. That's what I would say, because I think that it's an important artist at her peak. 2 records that should be in your collection, but I don't think listening to them often. To your point about sleeping to it, I get it. But there's not a lot of other settings where you'd want to listen to the album top to bottom, other than a relaxation, a sleep thing, a meditation thing, a massage thing. It's good massage music, I would guess.
Yeah, sure.
Right. So I'd put this, and I would include Watermark in terms of, collecting dust. These 2 feel really original, super authentic, and at a pinnacle. Everything before and after feels like it's not worth the time. But for this, I would absolutely say collecting dust. Everyone should own it, but listen to it regularly. Not sure. T, where's your final cut?
I'm kind of with you. I think that for me, the final cut on this is simple. It's in the collection. I don't think you can go all the way to on the turntable, even though it's a fantastic listen. The back half's kind of okay, right? And granted, I missed most of it because I was in La La Land. But the front half of the record, side A of this, is really good. Really, really special, really good. Deserves to be in the collection. It's a classic. I mean, Watermark, Shepherd Moons, and Memory of Trees it's a trio of Enya classics. It's really all you need, in fact, in kind of her overall collection, in terms of what preceded it and what has come after. I do think she hopefully has one more great album in her, and Nikki and Roma, and they can, produce one more that's really, really good and well received. She had that giant hit with Only Time, which is probably one of my least favorite Enya songs, to be honest with you. But, generated tremendous commercial success with that song. The album that surrounded it wasn't great. It wasn't bad. I don't think she's put out a record that's particularly bad, but would love to see the team sort of be able to collaborate on sort of one more for the Gipper there record that really closes out, because she's certainly on the back half of her career, probably the back quarter of her career at this point. One that would close it out in due fashion. So hopefully we do see that. But this is in the collection for me. I think Watermark, Shepherd Moons, and Memory of Trees should be, unless you just hate this genre, even if you're more into sort of just pure ambient, krautrock, some of the even sort of synth driven stuff. I think you still gotta have this and appreciate it, and kind of understand how they were able to turn this into a global phenomenon. Utilizing a lot of pop elements, but certainly a unique sort of Gaelic element and a unique proggy element in a lot of ways, using, in some cases, some classic synth instrumentation that any fan of those things can appreciate. So I've got it in the collection, buddy. All right. Well, before we wrap, it'd be interesting to do a little in your head with Enya. I'm not sure what she's listening to these days, right? I wonder what she's listening when she's like hanging out in her castle, just what she listens to,
like Slayer.
Yeah, exactly.
Norwegian death metal, probably.
Yeah, does she have this secret love for, or the other thing I could see, maybe she just listens to herself all the time.
I was going to say probably nothing.
Yeah, or nothing. Yeah. The
sounds of the wind.
Yeah. Well, I know that you haven't been listening to the sounds of the wind because you've always got something cooking over there, Buckaroo. So let's see what's in your head. What do you got, Nub?
Another Irish woman there, Dolores.
Yes, that's right.
My obsession with Ghost continues. So not the new record, but continue to listen to Cyrese by Ghost. Such a great rock song. Going to see them. Finally, I got tickets for them in Mastodon.
Nice.
Not until September, but cannot wait. We'll finally get to see Papa Emeritus and Ghost live. It'll be great. Second is a little, kind of a little not unknown, but little known hit from the mid 2000s. And that is Breathe Your Name by Sixpence None the Richer. Came on last week and I was like, this was a really good song. by a cool band. And then, it's summer. So the Money Man, miss him. Always open Pine Knob Music Theater. And obviously, left us a few years back, but I want to go back. Great Eddie Money tune.
Man, he had some beauties, didn't he?
Sure did. What's in your head?
Well, I wasn't going to say this, but now that you brought up the Money Man, I'm going to go with Walk on Water. That's a great summer song.
Yeah, really good.
So I can't say that it's in my head because I just thought of it, but it will be in my head because I'm going to listen to it right when we're done today. Give that Money Man his due, The second is off the single soundtrack. So Mrs. Toph and I were on a little bit of a road trip a couple weeks ago, and we started talking about the single soundtrack, and we were like, let's just listen to the whole thing, And the song by Mother Love Bone, which is Chloe Dancer, Crown of Thrones, is just an incredible song. It's an incredible song, and not terribly surprising to see what Mother Love Bone sort of turned into after Andrew Wood died and basically became Pearl Jam and all this stuff. It's you could tell that right from the get-go, those guys had a tremendous amount of talent, but that Chloe Dancer section with the piano and stuff is just pretty amazing.
Every once in a great while, Pearl Jam plays it live and it's magical. Yeah. It's awesome.
Yeah. And the third is, listen, we had Rupert Holmes on the show to talk through the Adventure record. The Adventure record really comes out for me during the summer. It's a great summer album. And I'm going to go with a song that I've enjoyed more and more as I've listened to it. And again, please go back and listen to that Rupert episode. 2 parts. Part 1 is us just bullshitting. Part 2 is us really digging into this very special, I think, record. And The O'Brien Girl is a song that I probably didn't love at first, but the more I hear it, man, that's a really cool tune. Really cool tune. So that is what is in my head. Nub, I hope we didn't kind of mellow you out too much here. I hope you can, kind of regroup and rev the engine back up, because sometimes that Enya music can just make you really chill. So yeah, how do you feel?
I got to go take a nap.
Yeah, exactly. It'll tucker you out if you're not careful. That's a wrap on a very unique, I think, record for us and for the show. And hopefully you all enjoyed it. And I haven't heard that many people say I hate Enya. So unless you just don't have a soul, Nub, I think you're an Enya fan deep down, right? Nub, thank you for your thoughts on this one. And clearly you had a good time because it allowed you to just talk about your girlfriend, Kate Bush, a bunch. So there you go.
Listen, any excuse that I can get to gush about my girlfriend.
Well, but you know what? You did it. You at least attempted, and I think succeeded, to do it in a way that was actually quite relevant. So
I think so. Look in the when we get to the Slayer episode, if I start to make the connection, then you might want to.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think it was very relevant, very connectable.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Well, hey, we'll see you all in a couple of weeks. We got something good cooking, as you can tell from what we've touched on a few times here. But we're really excited to have a special guest in a couple of weeks, so that'll be dropping soon. But in the meantime, we hope you enjoyed episode 75. No, I didn't even put that together until now. We've hit the 75 mark.
Is that the Jubilee? Jubilee?
It's something, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know. Huh.
Nice. It's great. Nice. Well, and obviously we got a Q&A still to come. So anyway, lots of good stuff coming up. But in the meantime, hey, the sun is coming out. Summer is on its way. And we hope you're getting off to a good start as these fun summer months are upon us. But be good. Be strong, be bold, and listen to Enya. It's good for your health. And we'll see you next time here on Two Twins and an album. Y'all take care out there.
Two Twins.
Well, that's about it. That's all we have. I hope it wasn't too disappointing. We will see you on tour. Until then, take it easy.